All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. It is Thursday, so we have one more day left to go for the week. And this is Christian Fromhert's Tribeca Trade Group. So let me start. I could go through a couple different topics for the day that we can kind of discuss. But I'm going to do I don't plug on these videos too much, and I'm just going to mention kind of what we do in the trading room every day. If you're a regular viewer of my video, I thank you and appreciate you watching these. But it's very, from what I put on Twitter and what I throw out there, I try to put more and more information on Twitter, but it's really a very small amount that what we post in and basically in our Slack group chat, right? We use Slack, and I've got several channels in there, news and charts. So I post much more. Sometimes I post a lot of things after the fact on Twitter, but if you're a part-time trader or full-time trader, we're here to kind of help, right, and make money together and so forth. I'm not with you see a lot of other groups on Twitter and so forth that will just talk about winners, and I don't know. I'm really not a part of all that. What I'm trying to do is give traders as much information that I can to try to give them, an edge and to make money. And we do that. We start 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, I start in the trading room about 7 o'clock in the morning, but we do a live pre-market show which starts at 9 o'clock, where I go through all the macro overnight moves and so forth, and what I'm basically looking at to trade and what I think is the right risk to trade for the day and so forth. So we look at day trades, and we look at swing trades, and then we do a lot of analysis after hours as well. So you could try our 1 week trial. It's $7 for a week, $7 for a week, and that's at tribecatradegroup.com. So anyway, quick plug. So let me get to let me get to today's. I hate plugging stuff, but I do run a business, and we really have a great group of traders, and I wouldn't encourage it if I didn't think that there's really value add with trading, with a group of people and who are all trying to help one another. Everybody's got different opinions about going long, going short, and everybody has respect for one another and tries to kind of help, especially with all kinds of movers that are going on. We've got a couple people who are just been calling out the moves, and then what I do is I kind of go ahead and look at the charts and say, oh, that's a pretty interesting move, and then I make a decision about whether I want to add a trade. Okay, so first topic, so that's out of the way. So first topic, I would say, is kind of what everybody's talking about is, right, we're getting to the point where, and I talked about this yesterday too, so it feels like deja vu all over again, right? To quote Yogi Berra, Yankees great Yogi Berra. But we are going to be hitting a little bit of overhead resistance, right? And the NIMO, which I'm not going to bring up again, I brought up yesterday, is really overbought. So does that mean that you should stop trading and crawl under a rock? No. I mean, it depends what kind of trader you are. If you're a day trader, there were some great setups today, right? I mean, look at the moves today from the open, right? We opened down today, but look at the performance. Like, retail got hit really hard today, pre-market on a lot of those guide downs, but look at what retail did from the open, right? This is all percentage change from the opening print. It was up 2.7%. Now, I'm not saying I didn't go long XRT, but look at the major averages. We're up 1% from the open. So by having that mentality of saying, I'm going to follow this NIMO and crawl under a rock, there's things that you could definitely do. And we'll talk a little bit about strategy as I go over this S&P chart. But, I mean, it was pretty risk on. The only thing that closed lower than the open was gold miners. Out of the FANG stocks, Netflix did the best. That's rallying a little bit after hours because there was an upgrade. But the small caps continue to remain strong. So, so here's the thing with this, right? You could doubt this move and anticipate, when a turn is going to happen, but I kind of think it's a fool's game. Because nobody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. Yes, logically, I would think that we hit on the ES 2641. That would probably be a place where we pause, but who knows? We could do a whole bunch of different scenarios before we get there. We could back and fill a little bit, but this is, if You follow price, which I try to do as much as possible. I try to use my market feel and little edge as well. But right now, the price is still moving, right? And just to recap this, as I was doing, talking to somebody after hours about this, but if you just use the 5 period moving average rather than your judgment, here is where we took the 5 period moving average. There was a fake out here where I got a little bit bearish. I think I put on a SPY hedge thinking, hey, we could possibly go back down here. And I had to change my mind very quickly the next day once we retook that 5 period. I've been doing a lot more long trades since then, and it's been working out very well for me. And I'm taking targets all along. And now as we get up here, so yes, I don't want to put on a whole bunch of risk here because I'm not going to completely ignore that oscillator. And I'm not going to completely ignore that there should be some overhead resistance. But so I'm still participating, but it's going to be on a smaller scale, and it's going to be a little bit more day trading. So a little bit less a little bit less swing trading, adding a lot of new swings, right? Doing a lot more managing of positions. And so that's it. Instead of making predictions, and I see a lot of people making predictions about, oh, it's bound, it's going to go down, and, you could have said this the same way on the way down too, here. You could have said it here. Oh, this is going down too far. I mean, the market will do what everybody at least expects, I think, anyway, for the most part. So I didn't think that we would go down this far. And if you just looked at the 5 period, it gave you, just ample. So it's just to me, and I wrote about this in our newsletter a couple weeks ago. Just follow the price, and it's crazy, but yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the other thing that I said in the trading room yesterday is that the pain trade is almost higher because everybody is psyching themselves out that, oh, this shouldn't happen, blah 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 blah. There's this reason, there's that reason. Companies are guiding down companies, but how much of it is priced in and so forth, right? I mean, also, what are the institutions doing? I mean, we're still seeing a lot of call flow and so forth. So somebody is still buying. So you can't, and that's another thing that you cannot predict is what these big players are going to do if they're still adding down here. So it is what it is. Now, that said, again, I think you have to be logical. I don't want to get caught. But I'm not going to add on heavy puts here too, thinking, oh, we have to go down and retest. I mean, that could be, but again, I'm going to wait for the price action to tell me that. And once we dip back below the 5 period, yeah, I'll be a day late, seeing that happen. But what if we actually go up to here, right? And if you've been buying puts all the way, you're going to get smoked. Right? So watch the price and stop trying to judge, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm just amazed that so many people say that they follow price and then they use a whole bunch of other indicators. That's my take. What else did I talk a lot about today? I talked about pre-market, about option activity. My take for option activity, just very plainly, is it gives me ideas, and it gives me, a lot of reads on sentiment. I I sent out a tweet earlier about, a lot of option flow that we see on the tape. It doesn't work. Some of it works great, right? But I always get challenges because people, I don't really understand that people don't admit that there's a lot of losers, and I could bring up a lot of losers where it was an aggressive call. They swept all the offers. It doesn't mean that they're going to be right. It doesn't mean that they know something. Sometimes I would say maybe 1 out of every 15, 1 out of every 20 times, yes, somebody may know something. But you may lose 10 other times on an option trade. Granted, it happens, right? It happens that people do know something and they buy calls or they buy puts. but that is not the every single time that you see an aggressive order on the tape, right? So I will take, and again, it's not that I don't use option activity. You see me tweet it out all day long, but I think people think it's the holy grail, and it's not. It is not. And I could tell you, for a lot of the trades that I've been putting on that have made a lot of money, I would say if you just follow the price, you're going to get to the same place. You don't need to see the option activity for the stock to go up. It's ludicrous, I think. I mean, look at this 5 that we found. There was no option activity in this. Team was another one, right? And then what somebody does when they see something like this, they start to go look and back the last 10 days. Was there somebody that bought calls in it? Okay, maybe if you go back 10 days, you may be able to find somebody bought. Odds are you're going to be able to find somebody who bought a call option. But if you just follow the price action, you don't need, in my opinion, it helps, right? I mean, again, I've got it up on the left side of my screen. But the price and volume are going to give you a lot of hints as well. I mean, I made some money on Monster this week, right? That was one that we did see a big size call, and it agreed with me on the technicals agreed with me that somebody was taking a shot here. So, yeah, it could really kind of say, okay, that makes sense, right? I can understand why somebody might be buying calls in this. Of course, they got a broker upgrade, so who knows? Maybe somebody new. And if that happens, and if you do your homework, and you get that double, where there happens to be some news that coincides with your setup, then great. But it doesn't work that way. I mean, some of the trades that I've put on keys this week, which has been a huge winner, which I got out of this trade yesterday, but there is no option act. Come on, there's no option activity in it. It was a really nice setup. Zen is working really nice too. There has been no option activity in Zen. So again, I'm just trying to help, because really it's your process. It's your process of where you're going to, get in. In the beginning of every trade, what I do is I define where my stop price is going to be, regardless if there's so let's say that I got in on the 200-day moving average, and there was a call buyer, and this thing dipped back below the 200-day moving average. I could care less about the call buyer. I care about my risk and about whether or not I'm going to make money, not whether the call buyer apparently may know something. So that's all you can manage. You can manage, because again, let's say that there was a call buyer again in ZEN. You don't know their position. You don't know if they're hedging with stock. You don't know if they're short stock and they went long calls as a hedge. I mean, you just don't know their picture. You can't pick up the phone and call them and ask them, what are you thinking? And again, just because they swept and they bought something, no relation to whether or not they know something, I think anyway. But so yeah, I mean, how am I managing this trade right now? Right. So when I originally got in, the 200-day moving average is my stop. Now that it's moving up, now I've got to ratchet up my stop price, 61. Basically below, once we get into value, which is going to be around $60, call it 60.50, and that'll be my trailing stop. And that's the process. I mean, that's basically, how it works for me making money. Okay, so what else? We didn't really talk. So we've talked about a lot of things. Are there still more setups, where I think are interesting? I talked about JD last night. I think this one looks interesting. A couple of things that I traded today was Boeing. I almost got stopped out in Boeing, but it actually worked for me. And I did not hold this thing all the way to the end of the day. But here was where I almost got stopped out on it. So it was a winner for me. Nvidia was also a name that I've got calls on from last week. This is working. So this is one that they are showing accumulation. It does look like somebody is buying some very close uh, maturity calls in this one. But I think the technicals, as long as it stays above here, again, this is a short-term trade that I've got on because, this whole thing is a mess. But do I think it could bounce a little bit further, maybe to the top of value? That would be really nice. Yes, I do, and that's why I'm in a short-term. I'm in some call spreads that expire next week. And look at the VPOC that's up here. It should come in here. Should fill in here in a second. Yeah, 148 is basically also what I'm looking at here. And we'll see. This is going to be tomorrow's value area. Do, 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 do. So, as long as we get back above, remember these VPOCs, which I'm going to be giving a webinar next week, a member webinar on what version point of controls are and how I use them to trade. But this will get activated once we get above this red line. Once you're in value, they're not activated. Same thing with this one, not activated. But once you get outside of value, outside of range, then we could come back. And again, why are these important? Which I go over almost every night. Because it was a high volume area, and price usually returns to high volume areas, which for some reason I can't go back. Maybe I have to scroll back, but Thinkorswim is kind of funky. But all the way back here, there was some decent volume in here, and notice how it kind of is unchecked. This one was here, which it looks like we've already taken that one out. All right, so that's a couple names that I'm playing. Couple other names. Yeah, I did want to go over a couple other ones. I think the ZS continues to trend up. It's already been on a decent swing, but I think this is on its way to 48. Deer. So this one, I'm going to use a little bit of option activity to talk about this one. But again, it's got to be, for me, it's got to be more than the option activity. But Deer, we saw a couple different orders. We saw Deer calls the other day, and if you look at the open interest here in Deer, so I don't think I have this up anymore. Still waiting for this to come up. But there was this was the March calls that we saw, and I highlighted that in Slack today. But right here, there's 5,700 of these, and then they went ahead and they traded a bigger block today out, and these were, I think, in the money calls that went up. I think it was June. So something a little bit different. Sorry, this is so slow. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I should have it in my spreadsheet. Yeah, June 180s. I don't know why the volume is not showing there anymore. June 180s. Here it is, right here, right staring at me right in the face. 2,500 of these. So what are they? So that's all the way. Always look at the strike too if you are analyzing option flow. They're looking for 180. That's pretty far up there. Keep in mind you're gonna. That's who knows if they're gonna hold through earnings season as well. But that's pretty far up there. So what did I, or what was the idea that I sent out? Basically looking for maybe a move back to 175. And as long as notice it's above the trend line, there's also this resistance. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what it does here. It closed on the absolute highs today. I like the idea that I sent out earlier. I think was 162.5, 170 call spread. Going out to the beginning of February because they report mid-February. So that's something, considering it's I probably would use options here because it's a high-priced stock. It's a $160 stock. So if you don't want to just own the outright stock, but I think that is one way that you can kind of look for a further run. And maybe if it back and fills, that you could actually put on different strikes. But I think that's a pretty decent looking chart decent looking setup. AMRN, really nice setup today. They bought a whole bunch of calls in this one. So momentum was in on this one. And notice it broke this trend line all the way up to the top of value, 1835. So we'll see what it does after that. I'm not in this one. I just could not chase today. And plus, I already had a couple trades on. And, and that's another thing, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the video. You put on what you can handle. I don't think right now, looking at those technicals, you want to have on a ton of positions in here. You want to kind of stay very nimble, right? In case this does happen, right? You always want to play out these scenarios, and then we'll kind of leave it here for the night. Oh, let me go over a couple other charts, and then we'll call it a night. But in case we do change directions, right? Instead of buying a whole bunch of puts, just prune down your positions a little bit and make sure you're nimble. Right? I think that's better. Again, this video is for information purposes only, and I'm not giving out any advice, but just kind of walking through a little bit of scenario analysis. All right, and and then finally, I think that the Chinese names still look pretty good. We detailed those in last night's. I did start a position in JD. Again, I'm always happy to tell you, even though you may not be a subscriber of Tribeca Trade Group, but I think JD is a pretty nice setup here with your letting your stop be 22.27, and we'll see where this thing wants to go. A couple other ones that I think I talked about yesterday. TAL. I mean, they're all starting to look pretty decent, so that tells me that something different is going on here. TAL. It was funny. There was a small call buyer in YINN. But this is another one that's interesting. Small cap name, VIPS, VIPS. Kind of came back in a little bit. I don't like how the volume was higher than it was yesterday. But still, it looks like some of these things are coming back. And we can look at the whole group as well. That's got to get over the 50-day moving average. Just like, oh, shoot, I forgot to put on. I was going to put on an EM trade today, and I forgot to do it. EM, I think it's starting to look different, right? Look at the 5 cross above the 50-day moving average. Also, look at the 50-day moving average starting to curl up. So kind of giving us a little bit of a hint. And I cannot believe I forgot to put on this trade today. I talked about it in the pre-market session. But anyway, that'll be for tomorrow's trading. So that's enough. This video is over 20 minutes. That's good enough. Hope you like it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, Friday. Hopefully, I'll see you in the trading room. Thanks very much, and have a great night.